Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson were in the spotlight during the Japanese Grand Prix qualifying session, and the fact that the new Red Bull driver qualified lower than the demoted Lawson was definitely a head-scratching scenario. The second qualifying session went utterly wrong for Tsunoda, as it now seems like the problem with the car will persist for a longer period of time. Be that as it may, is the curse of the second seat alive? And if so, what is the next step for Red Bull? There's no doubt that Red Bull faced a disastrous scenario with Tsunoda as the Japanese driver exited Q2 and qualified P15, while his nemesis Lawson managed to just pip him ahead for P14. Although both of these results are poor and have no meaning whatsoever, the fact that both Racing Bull's cars are ahead of Tsunoda, especially Hadjar, who managed to make it into Q3 and qualify P7 ahead of Hamilton, goes to show that the Faenza-based squad definitely has a better platform to work on. Horner was definitely paying attention to the pecking order in his team, and it didn't slip that Tsunoda ranked lower than Lawson. Addressing this awkward situation, Horner said, "It was a shame. He's gone in a bit hot at turn 1. You're on the back foot for the rest of the lap. Up to that point, I think he's actually done very well." He then added, "Pleased to see Liam settling in well as well at the Racing Bulls." If we're to analyse the flying lap of Yuki in Q2, we can see how the Japanese driver failed to have the perfect start, having to make corrections even before the lap began. The pressure was massive on Tsunoda to deliver a killing lap, primarily because he ran used softs prior to the last attempt to salvage what's left of the RB21, as the deficit to Verstappen was 0.6 at the time. Yuki managed to keep himself within 1 to 0.3 of a second of his teammate before Q2 arrived, and all of a sudden, the pace was nowhere to be found when it mattered the most. When talking about his sudden exit from Q2, Tsunoda has gone on to say, "I mean, Q1 felt pretty good. I just missed the window, I guess. I think the window that this car can operate in is very narrow, and for the warm-up, probably most of the things have to almost be perfect, especially the warm-up. And especially for Q2 Run 2, I wasn't able to do the warm-up I wanted as in a previous run, so that makes a big difference in the end. So something I learned I kind of recognized in the Q2, but it was a bit too late, and it's a shame I wasn't able to put it all together when it matters. On top of that, the red flag disrupted the momentum, and while a red flag is a red flag for every driver on the track, when you have a car that's operating in such a narrow window, it can definitely throw you off of the rails very quickly. This is precisely what happened to Yuki, who started the season in a very awkward position, the slowest driver from Red Bull's family on his own turf. But it seems like his car was quite different compared to the others on the track, which is a huge question mark for Red Bull. Why have they done this on purpose? Before the weekend began, we knew that Tsunoda would have a different, less aggressive setup on his car, and that was noted by the size of his rear wing. The bigger rear wing meant that he was running with much more downforce than Verstappen, which practically means that Tsunoda will have a slower but safer and more stable car to drive. If you think about the small operating window of the car, this didn't actually help Yuki a lot, but when it mattered the most, the Japanese driver wasn't able to create a great lap on a new compound of soft tyres, improving the lap with the used ones by just 1.5 of a second. According to Ted Kravitz, the issue is obviously in the rear wing of the car, and there's nothing that the new Red Bull driver could have done. Even though Verstappen qualified on pole to shock both of the McLaren drivers, we can't directly compare the two cars primarily because of the setup, and elaborating further on this, the Sky F1 pundit said, "I've spied a very significant difference in the downforce levels of both of these cars. Yuki has got a distinctly bigger rear wing angle on his car. We heard from Christian talking about the balance of the car. We also heard him earlier in the weekend talking about giving Tsunoda a more predictable car, a car that's not going to bite him. It might be a bit slower, but that is what Horner says, and I can see it in the garage. You look at the rear wing of Verstappen, that is quite a shallow angle. Then you swap to the left-hand side, which is a thick angled rear wing. So it's safety first for Tsunoda. What this goes to suggest is that Red Bull wasn't particularly happy to allow Yuki to run with a setup similar to the one of Max, mostly because the team was aware of the risks that could come if they made the car similar to Verstappen's. Tsunoda was very happy with the behaviour of the car throughout the free practice sessions, and even in Q1 he managed to pull some great lap times. But when the pressure started to pile up, it was evident that he would struggle and would pay the price of Red Bull's setup play. Prior to this, the goal for the Japanese driver was extremely high, a podium finish. I don't like to sound very pessimistic, but in such a compacted grid, and in a situation where he'll start 15th, The best he can do is hope that the rain will mess up the race just enough for him to be in the top 10. There are lots of factors that can and should be analysed as to why the qualifying went wrong for Tsunoda, but apart from the visual ones on the car, there is the psychological factor. Prior to the qualifying, Horner applied a lot more pressure on Tsunoda than he did on Lawson, by stating that the adaptation process will be relatively smooth compared to Lawson. To top that off, the Japanese driver was given a guarantee that he'll see the end of this season, but it seems like these statements haven't worked as they were originally meant to. When talking about the expectations of Tsunoda and the adaptation process in Red Bull, Horner said, "I think Yuki brings experience to this team, and I think knowledge is very useful, as this season is all going to be about a development race. That's why we took the decision early. I think Liam would have gotten there, but it might have taken 5, 6, or even 7 races, or half a season. We don't have that amount of time. After discussing it internally, we decided, right, we've got to rip the plaster off this now and get on with it. And that's what we chose to do, and Yuki jumped in and did a good job initially." But if you're to ask Liam Lawson, the Kiwi driver is not very fond of returning back to Red Bull, as his primary goal would be to prove that he belongs here in the Racing Bulls. There's no doubt that the car suits him more because of the wider operating window, and although comparisons being made between the Faenza-based squad and the RB21 are kind of abysmal right now, the fact that there's one of each car in Q3 while 2 are out in Q2 speaks volumes about the problems of Red Bull. When talking about his future in Red Bull and hinting at the potential return, Lawson said, "I think we know how Formula 1 is and how quickly things change. I mean, if I look back a year ago, I had no seat. I was here a year ago watching and wishing I was racing. So for me, the main thing is being in a car. And I have the opportunity to prove I belong here, and that's what I'll try and do. I guess that a Red Bull return is part of the conversation. I guess in a way that's great, but obviously I was already there starting the season and was focused on proving myself in the team at that point." Now that pressure is slowly but surely getting up to Tsunoda, and according to the former F1 champion Jacques Villeneuve, he's the one who's paying the price for the strategy choice that Red Bull made with the car's setup. There's no doubt that Yuki was given a bit of a tough task to hop into the car and start delivering performance in a very short period of 5 races, because according to Marco, if the team doesn't deliver the performance in this span, then it's safe to assume the season is lost. What this would ultimately do is force Verstappen out of the team, as there are tons of experts who now believe that there will be tons of offers coming to the Dutchman's door, primarily from Aston Martin and Mercedes, that he will find very hard to deny. With all of this in mind, what do you think about the performance of Tsunoda in Japan's qualifying session? And more importantly, do you think he can bounce back during the race and pull a masterclass like he did many times with the Racing Bulls? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.